Dun-dun-dun-dun. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Everyman Podcast. Now, tonight we are joined by a very special guest, Dr. Tamara Russell. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm enjoying this sun that we're having here in
Yeah,
the UK. It's creating a very different experience in my
yeah,
mind and my body, and really great. Thank you.
yeah. I certainly experienced the sun over the last couple of weeks. So I went out last weekend, and I was out Saturday and Sunday, pretty much all day in the sun. And being follically challenged, which people will laugh at, my head like burnt and peeled, which was horrible. So I've learned to be a little bit more sensible and either wear a hat or sun cream, which helps, which is good. Um, so tonight we're going to talk about quite a few things. I'm not going to try and sell what you are and who you and your experience. We'll talk about that. But essentially, you're a clinical psychologist. You're an author as well, and you're a founder of the Mindfulness Centre. You're also a visiting professor at King's College London. Have I
Yeah,
pretty much nailed
yeah.
your summary there?
Visiting lecturer, not professor,
Visiting
but
lecturer,
visiting lecturer.
lecturer.
Yeah.
Got it, got it. So, what would be really interesting, if you tell the guests or the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we'll start to delve into maybe some of the story of what that is.
Yeah, great. Well, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tamara. And, I'm a hyperactive, curious soul who loves learning.
Mm,
And the topic that really excites me is learning about minds, bodies. And like many people who work in healthcare and particularly mental health care, some of that early impulse to learn about others and help others was actually really an invitation from my heart and from my soul to do my own healing. So started off very academically, studying psychology, studying neuroscience, completing a PhD, getting very into neuroimaging, trying to understand brain networks, and then having this experience of thinking, well, I just don't want to get the research subjects in and scan them. I'm actually interested in their stories, and I want to know how I can help them more immediately, because the benefits of academic research, getting them to the shop floor, is often a lengthy journey. And I then went on to train as a clinical psychologist. So I have an interest in research, but I've also got a very practical, applied mind. And so for me, I now say what I do is applied translational neuroscience, taking the insights from neuroscience and neuroimaging and applying them in my clinical work and the work I do elsewhere.
yeah. And when you think of all the work that you do, what's the bit that you love the most? What's the thing that really lights Tamara's fire?
Well, I really love teaching.
Mhm.
And it's a bit of a
Yeah.
trick in a way, because it's teaching plus sharing.
Hmm.
Because often the teaching, I notice, is more powerful when I am able to share some of my own personal story, because then people really feel that it's real, not just
Hmm.
stuff coming from a book.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of an edge there. I think as a clinical psychologist, we're taught to sort of hold ourselves back. But that's maybe why I didn't get on very well in mainstream services and set up my own private practice, because the
Yeah.
style in which I like to work is very much about reducing the power dynamics and saying, look, we're all human. We've all got these brains that are like amazing, but sometimes trip us over. We've all got
Mhm.
these feelings in our body, which are amazing, but sometimes get overwhelming.
Yeah.
And, I need help with my mental health. Just because I'm a psychologist doesn't mean I've got it all figured out. And actually, more likely I don't, which is why I'm a clinical psychologist.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. I think when you talk about like the idea of teaching people, I think there's something really powerful for even our own mental health when you can see the benefit you're giving to other people. So did you find the fact that you're able to have conversations with people about their health, that naturally helps you as well?
Well, what I hear very often is people saying, why wasn't I taught this at school?
Mm,
Why didn't anybody tell me this? What you're saying makes so much sense. It's really resonating with me. You've kind of simplified it in a way. I recognize it kind of comes from a deep level of knowledge, but you've presented it in a playful way, because then I'm playing, I'm having a good time too.
yeah.
Um, and it's something I can really take away and use. And I think that's what really feeds me. It's like,
Mm,
this person will leave this encounter with like maybe a small kind of bit of like, oh, and then also this idea like I can do something. It may be just really small, but there's
yeah.
something I can do to bring back agency in managing, things that are difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's once you get that realization from someone as well, I think that's super powerful. There was something you said there, though, around how when people say, I wish I'd been taught that in school. And so I've spoken about this on the podcast before, that growing up, I didn't feel like so I'm 31. I didn't feel like mental health was ever really a thing in school. You kind of just had to crack on with sort of how you were feeling, and it was kind of ignored. Um, and generally in society, I feel like we're starting to get to a place where um, health generally is spoken about a lot more, but mental health is starting to be spoken about even more. I find anyway, and I might have some sort of conscious bias towards that because obviously I'm on a health podcast, so maybe I see that spoken about more than maybe everyone else potentially does. Is that something that you're seeing in your field? Obviously, you're in that world every day. I'm in it on a Monday night generally, and then whatever I do in my own health. Are you feeling like, as a society in the UK, primarily, that we are starting to be a lot more health conscious?
Well, I think I kind of loop back to that point about mental health.
Mm,
And when I'm at my most, rebellious, I kind of just want to throw that language out the window, because it's
mm,
become kind of toxic in a way. And
mm,
I'll give an example: a friend that's working with young people, and basically it's like, okay, we're going to do this thing, and da 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 da, and then the young person says, no, miss, I can't do that. And it's like, why not? I've got mental health. I've got a mental health.
mm,
And it's like stops the curiosity. So that's why I like this language of mental wealth.
mm.
And also, I do believe that young children should be taught about financial health in
Yeah, of
schools,
course,
and they're not.
massively.
So, just as we teach them, you got to brush your teeth, you got to kind of do all these hygiene things to keep your body well and healthy. Why are we not teaching ways in which we can develop resilience,
Mm,
acknowledging that life will be full of challenges, acknowledging that we will all have moments where we're stressed, where we're anxious, where things get really big really quickly, where we might want to go under the duvet. This is part of our human experience, and to pretend it's not is a disservice, I think, to our youngsters.
hmm
There's another debate about why now is it so bad, why now do we have to pay so much attention, and I think there are generational differences in the lives that we've lived, the exposures to the environments that we've been in. Certainly, digital natives have got a very different experience in terms of
hmm
their brain functioning and emotion regulation because of technology.
Yeah.
But these things have been with us throughout society, throughout the ages.
Mm,
But I often speculate that because our way of living has become so constrained, like, if you're not somebody that can sit still in a box and pay attention with your eyes forward, like, suddenly you look like a bit of a weirdo who's got
yeah, yeah.
something wrong with them.
hmm
Whereas back in the day, there would be a job for you to do, or you would do a certain part of the work in the community, but not another part. But there was space for everybody. Whereas now it's like the normal band is like getting more and more narrow. And as a result, every man and his dog now has got a diagnosis of this, that, or the other, which I just don't think is real. I'm
Yeah.
quite strong on that. I'm very opinionated on this point, but
Do you know,
others
we
tend to
were
disagree.
we were speaking about this before, weren't we? That the idea, and this is before the podcast, before people think that they've missed something. The idea that we're all on some. This is my opinion. We're all on some form of a spectrum, and whilst it's great to have a label saying I have, so I'm potentially, well, I'm going through the process personally to understand if I have ADHD, and it's not for me to say I have ADHD. It's for me to understand. I want to go through that process just as a way of understanding myself more. I'm hopeful going through that. It's a method upon which to do that. Equally, I'm doing other things in my life for me to understand myself more, other than just waiting for some black ink on a piece of paper that says, Lewis, you are this. Because I don't think that materially will change my life in any way. Me having just a level of understanding of saying I am diagnosed with ADHD or whatever I end up getting. Probably loads of them, to be honest. But I jest, obviously. I think it can be dangerous, and I think you've made a really good point there around if we just keep labeling, then there might as well not be labels. If everything has
Exactly.
a label, then what is a label? So, and some of the work you do, and we were speaking about this before, around actually just truly understanding yourself is more important, and just trying to be the best version of you, versus just saying I have this diagnosis and therefore I can't do something. It's actually how whoever and however you are as a person, using that in a way to be the best version of you, not using it as a way to say I can't do this because I have XYZ.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
And
think
it's
we need to get
very
to that
much,
point.
it's about kind of taking the power back in a way, but it does require it requires a little bit of sophistication so that we can begin to recognize that how I process information and make meaning may not be the same as how you process information and make meaning. And how I react to a challenge may have some different characteristics to how you react to a challenge. But both of us have the neural architecture, which is a brain that alerts us when things
Yeah.
are not okay. And some people are coiled like a tight spring, and others are chill like a cucumber. And
Yeah.
there's a huge range. And so our task is to know, well, where am I on that range? And what are the strategies that I know work for me when I get myself in a bit of a panic, or I'm catastrophizing, or I'm getting really anxious or ruminating? You know, how do I learn the signature moves of my mind when it's perturbed? And how do I then soothe? So, I mean, we just had Mental Health Awareness Week, and I was talking on the topic of stress and anxiety, and people want, often people want lists. They say, well, what do I need to do? And I mean, if you type into Google, what do I do for you? I mean, there's so much information out there about the things that we can do. Some of it a bit dodgy, some of it more reliable, but that's not the point. The point is I can give you a whole list, but the reality is I'm not in your life. I don't know your context. I don't know what your financial resources are to or your time resources. So I'm not going to give you lists, but I am going to give you some basic principles that you need to be thinking about, because fundamentally what you need to do is soothe your nervous system. And you can do that in a myriad of different ways. And your job is to have like 3 that you can do that take 30 seconds, like maybe some breathing, some shoulder rolls, finding an alert, relaxed posture. You need to have a few that involve being with other people in some way, because we know that connection is really beneficial to help us regulate when we're dysregulated. Probably you want a few that involve some sort of movement, but I'm not going to tell you to run or jump or skip. Like, you need to figure out what you can do.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of teach a man to fish kind of idea rather than, but that's more work, right? And people say, oh, I want to just give me a list and I'll do it. But they don't. It's not internal. It's not with self-agency.
Yeah, I think that is just, I think you've just summarized the general population so well there. We, especially in today's world where everything is a short, everything is a reel, everything is a 30-second clip, people want to change their life on a 20-second video that gives them all of the answers to find peace, happiness, health, whatever that is, when actually sometimes, just as you say, just doing the work, even and doing and moving, as you say, could be rolling your shoulders, but it could just be going for a walk. You don't have to run a marathon to change your health. Going outside, getting some sunlight, going for a walk, like that absolutely changes your mindset, how you feel, how you view the world, the stresses that are in your mind. You have clarity of thought when you start to move, because your brain isn't then thinking about the stress of it. It's also then able to just, I think when you exercise, your brain almost just opens up and you're able to see the wood for the trees, versus just thinking, oh my God, this stress is niggling at me all day, every day, and I don't know how to get out of it. Because we all have moments of that, I think, where we're struggling in that rut. And when you're in that rut, as you say, it's then how you cope with it and how you as a person, as an individual, can do the things to take you out of the rut, and being consistent with that to have true health.
Right. So the consistent is important. So there's a piece of research that was conducted by the Institute of Noetic Sciences in the States. Now they're more in the transpersonal realm of psychology. And they did this huge study across all different kinds of like interventions and spiritual practice. And they wanted to find out what are the key factors underpinning transformation.
Okay.
Personal transformation. It was more in the kind of biopsychosocial spiritual model, but it was a really great piece of research that captured my attention because it was so huge. And what they actually said was there are 4 main factors. It kind of doesn't matter what you do, but there are 4 underpinning factors. So one is intention. Second one is attention. Third one is repetition. Last one is a guide. So not a guru, because they can get a bit dodgy, but a guide, somebody that's like a little bit ahead of you on this kind of process, or someone reliable that you can talk to about your process.
Yeah.
And I really love that because, certainly when we're moving the body in a mindful way, there's intention, there's attention. And if we can build it into our everyday life and make every movement a mindful movement as far as we can, we've got the repetition. We've got those reps in that are training the attention networks, making them stronger, improving our focus, helping us to be able to regulate when emotions get strong so our attention isn't captured, and deepening and developing that body awareness through everyday movements. Now, I liked what you talked about going for a walk and going for a run, but I must just point out, I've definitely had the experience where I've gone for a run. I mean, I can think of one very particular experience. It was what I would call a relational a relational situation that I was really struggling with. And I was running around Brockwell Park, which was my main training space when I lived in London. And I mean, I was just running and ruminating. I mean, I wasn't in my body at all. My brain was just ruminating, rehearsing, what am I going to say? And then they're going to say that. And then they're going to say this. And I'm going to say that. So it is actually possible to be moving in a very mindless way, particularly if there's strong emotion or kind of deep wounds. And I talk to a lot of yoga practitioners who say, well, my body's in the yoga studio, but my mind is like with the fight that I had with my husband, or, thinking about my kid not passing his GCSEs, or, so this idea that we automatically have these effects when we move, I would challenge that a bit. And I would just normalize, if that's not your experience, that's okay. That's okay. So, but what can we do? Yes, movement brings attention into the body. If we're doing a complex movement, more attention is needed. If we're doing a new movement, more attention is needed. But we can also go through this more mindful process where we say, mind, I see you, I love you, mwah, kisses. You're not wrong, you're not bad. But what I'd like to do now is, as I'm running, I want to tune into my posture. I want to kind of get that sense of my skeleton just right. I'm going to make some micro adjustments till I can find the posture of my body where I'm running with ease. Or, mind, I love you, not now. Now I'm tuning into the sounds. I want to hear the sounds of other people. Maybe it's cars, maybe it's birds, maybe it's the sounds of your breath, the sounds of the feet hitting the road. So it's like being more active in engaging with the movement process. So then you can really use it to help your mind. Now, when you do that, of course, you run, the ideas come, you get really creative, you are problem solving, because you're creating that space in the mind. But some people might need a bit more direction and directiveness to pull the mind down.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. Do you know when you were saying there about, so I don't know if this means I'm a good runner or I'm a bad runner yet. I haven't determined that from what you've just said, but I can't listen to nothing. So I have to listen. I use that as like headspace when I go for a run. So most of my runs are generally around an hour-ish. So I'll do, I don't know, a 10K or whatever. And so I like to go and listen to something. But do you know, if I actually think about each footstep, or I think about like really feel my body when I'm doing it, I realize how much it hurts. So it's one of those where then I don't enjoy it as much. So I don't know if I'm not thinking about it the right way, or if I just need to maybe do other things and then really think about it. Because when I play football, I really think about my posture, my movement, because I'm competing against someone. I need them to react to how I move. So if I drop a shoulder, I want them to go that way and me to go that way. But when I'm running, I feel like it's very different. One thing to then probably explore from this, and it's probably a good segue, is obviously and what you do is martial arts, and that's all about movement. And I imagine there's a lot more thought going into it, because everything is such a considered movement versus maybe a run. It's quite mechanical, and most people have the physical mechanics to be able to run. Most people probably don't have the physical mechanics to perform a martial arts move at the level where it's proficient or good or whatever. What does martial arts do and mean for you? And obviously, why did you start it?
Well, I was late to martial arts, and I visited a martial arts club that was at the Institute of Psychiatry when I was doing my PhD there. And as the head of the student forum, I'd given some money to start some clubs up for the students that were down at this. It was all postgraduates down at that campus. So I went to check it out and to see what they were doing, how they were using the money, whether it was good or not. And I went and joined in a class. And it was the teacher that had been teaching around South London. So gratitude to Sifu Harold Coggins. And when I went into the class, I'd done quite a lot of sports, running and basketball were kind of like my main ones, skiing because I lived in Canada. And I found that the movements reached parts of the body that I hadn't been aware of before. So that was the first thing that really hooked me, was like, what is that sensation? What is that ache? If you're in a certain sport, you get used to the aches, where the aches are, which muscles are being used. So this was kind of like, I could feel that it was doing something like deeper in my body. And I got really curious about that, because I was like, well, ADHD brain, right? Ooh, novelty, novel stimulus, something new. Like, what is that? So that was part of it. I mean, the second part of it is learning new movements, learning sequences and forms does train the attention in a very particular way. Yeah, you need to focus during the learning period. You need to retain, you need to have memory. As you progress, of course, the movements get more automatized. So the need to actually focus on the movements themselves is decreased, and then you're more into the kind of subtle aspects of like, what is the mind doing, what are the energetics of it, what's the pacing, the tone, the rhythms. You're into the more nuanced aspects of movement. You still need to make the postures, but your mind is not learning how to do that. So yeah, and then I think I got a little bit addicted, to be honest, because those bodily sensations it was like a whole new world opened up. And the thing is, if you keep going, you get better. I mean, it's not any secret. So it's quite addictive in that respect, because you're just like, oh my God, my body can do this. Oh my God, I can do this. And of course, at the beginning, you can't. And it's really painful and it hurts. And, you can't walk the next day. But if you keep going, it's incredible, actually, what's possible with the body.
Yeah.
And what I really respected about that teacher as well is we had a student. He wasn't with us for very long, but he did also train some students that were in wheelchairs, so people with disabilities. So that also for me was just like, it's about the martial arts spirit, right? It's not about, I look amazing and I can beat up people. It was really like, what is the spirits of martial arts around personal development? Like, meet people where they're at, do what you can with the body that you've got. But yeah, I just loved it. I loved it. And, when I train, I mean, I've kind of I am still doing some Kung Fu, but more nowadays I'm doing Tai Chi and Qigong and the weapons. Sword is like my main training at the moment.
Yeah.
Sword. And, I feel different when I've done it. Really different.
How important do you think it is that people try and do new things? Like try and push themselves out of their comfort zone to do things that maybe they haven't done before?
Well, I mean, based on the research, one of the things that seems to be really important in maintaining good mental wealth is cognitive flexibility.
Okay.
And I would link that directly to physical flexibility, because I'm like mind-body person. But cognitive flexibility comes under that category. Can I approach things that I don't know about and maybe have a different experience? I mean, I'm quite careful about sort of pushing and striving as a language, because I think we have so much pushing and striving in our world that probably the task is to do less of that. I would say approach it more with playfulness and curiosity, like a child, like, oh, I've never done trampolining before, I'm going to try that, or because there's a lot of pushing and striving, and I see this in the kind of, the HIIT work and some of these bike things, and I think it's okay, but I don't think these are ways of exercising that are in line with the research that tells us that if we want to keep moving when we're 80, 90, 100 years old, we don't want to do high intensity sports, because it damages the body. I mean, running on grass better than running on road, of course, some factors that may influence that. But I mean, I'm of an age now where I've got friends, they love running, they get a great benefit from it. It's really helping them to stay mentally fit and mentally healthy. But, they're with knee problems now and joint problems and hip problems. And I'm grateful to one of my teachers that said to me, look, I know you don't like sitting on a cushion, you find it really hard and blah, 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 blah. But what are you going to do when you can't move anymore? What would you
Mhm.
do if you couldn't move? If really that's your only way to be well, is like running crazy long distance running and,
Yeah.
kind of the hard side of movement practice. What will you do if you're injured?
When you can't. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, yeah, that'll probably be quite hard. If my
Yeah.
main strategy is like run for 5 hours in the snow to get rid
Yeah,
of
yeah.
my teenage angst.
Yeah, yeah. That's so interesting because it's my way of being okay. Like, genuinely is go out for a run or go and play football. I'm pretty good at walking, as in, like, I'm pretty good at being consistent with walking. I use that as much as anything. Um, but you're right. As I've stepped up running more, my hips, my knees, I just feel it so much more. And I'm probably putting that down to as much of like, oh well, I haven't been for a while. But actually, it's wear and tear, isn't it? And you can only do so much. So yeah, I
Well, but
probably have to take that away.
yeah, I mean, if I may, and I'm happy to chat to you a bit more afterwards,
Yeah.
but it, it's okay. There's like the basics, like the surface that you're running on, shoes, those sorts of things. But I
Mhm.
mean, my top tip,
Yeah.
because I do sometimes work with kind of long distance runners and ultra marathon people because they want to prepare the
Yeah.
mind, right?
Yeah.
There's, it might be worth run with your music. That's cool. But
Mhm.
maybe have a period where you're running and it's not so much thinking about the body, it's sensing the body. So
Mhm.
there's some really small micro adjustments of stride length, of effort, of kind
Mhm.
of tilt, of head position, arm position that will really make a difference for the body
Mhm.
to find the most easeful way. And you use that language of like, yeah, we've got the mechanics, but this is
Mhm.
again, there's some books called chi running. Chi running is a little bit like that. It's like how to
Okay.
do running in a tai chi mode. I want to optimize the orientation of my spine, my pelvis, to let the energy flow through my body with as much ease as possible. And that
Mhm.
may be for a period pulling back the stride length, for example,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
just slowing down a bit in order to give yourself the time to really feel into that. Then when you've reshaped the posture, then you can pick up again.
Okay.
Um, the other thing I would say is, do the massage afterwards. Self
Mhm.
massage is a very underutilized way to learn about the body, to take care of the body. In martial arts, we learn, the massage and kind
Yeah.
of care of injuries is part of, that's how you learn how to care for your injuries. Is you touch them and you move them and you figure out
Yeah, you
like,
feel it.
okay, how can I move that finger when that one's broken. So, and how
Yeah.
can I massage, and how do I bring healing to the body through touch and
Mhm.
massage and, herbs, if you want to go into that. But
Yeah.
mm,
No, I think that's it's definitely good advice. Yeah, I need to get better at that. I'm really bad at recovery, actually. I'm good at the exercise bit, and I'm really bad at the recovery. I'm about as flexible as a plank of wood, so I definitely need to work on that one. Um, there was a question that a guest has messaged me personally. It's popped up when we were on, saying, generally, what would your top tips be? And we talked about this before, so I'm sorry to ask for a list. I'm sorry because we did mention the no lists, but what are even just a few principles? So like,
yeah.
and it's probably going back to what we were talking about before, sort of the mega trends piece, which we haven't introduced to the audience yet. So maybe we cover that part versus just a general list. But like,
Well, yeah, no, I
yeah,
can
you
answer
talk about
that. I can answer that. I mean, we were talking about megatrends in mental health earlier on before we
that.
started the podcast, and we were trying to select what would be the topics to bring.
Yeah,
And one of the kind of trends that's coming in mental health is about almost kind of like smashing through diagnostic categories, and trying to use an understanding of the brain to help us make sense of what are the sorts of things that people experience when they're not feeling good. Now, it's a model of consciousness that says your brain is not the only important organ. It's connected to a body. You know, it's this whole piece of the body and the brain interacting with each other. And I mean, one of the theories that I really work with a lot is from evolutionary psychology. So in the evolutionary psychology model, we basically say, look, your brain has got 3 different kinds of motivations. It's either in threat mode, it's in drive, or it's in soothing. Yeah. Okay. It's either like something's not good. Oh my God, physically, mentally, I'm not good. I'm not good. Something's bad. Something's scary. I don't like it. That's threat mode. Blue mode is like, I'm on it. I'm focused. I've got my to-do lists. I'm acting in the world. I'm getting stuff done. I'm strategizing. Yeah. Kind of work mode, study mode. And then the green is like resting, digesting, contentment, happy, relaxed. And so in our modern world, if you're a working adult, you've probably got like masses of blue, probably from that quite a bit of red, and your greens have shrunk down to like a little pea because we're busy, we're stressed, and we haven't got time to go to the gym, and we get home late and we can't be bothered, and we sit down and we start, you know, getting on our Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you're in a mental health crisis, perhaps. You're full of reds. Yeah, these are psychological reds, psychological threat. You got no energy for blue. You can't even do the blue that somebody says, well, you should go to the gym because that's really good for your mental health. And you're just like, I can't even get on the bus. Like, you know, you know, don't tell me about all these things I need to do because I'm like frozen or I'm kind of anxious. Yeah. So the story there is our job is to rebalance that system. It's not about a life of no reds. It's not about a life of all blues. It's about balance, and the greens get lost. So my top tip is think about what are some activities that you like, that you can do.
Yeah.
That would be in, I call it the list of greens. So I'll share my list of greens because that might be a good example for people. So I've got a couple of what I call emergency greens. These are things that don't require any equipment and I can do them in 30 seconds. One of them is hand on heart. I literally just put my hands on my heart and go, I don't like this. This is really hard. I'm really upset. I'm feeling guilty, ashamed. I'm like just allowing myself to feel the reds. I'm just literally taking my hands to my heart and going, okay, this is a moment of not good for me. And I'm just going to pause for 30 seconds and give myself a break and say, I don't like it. I don't want it. Yeah. So that's one. Breath practices are often quite good. Again, I go for the longer exhalation. There's a lot of research out there about how that helps to regulate the autonomic nervous system and activates the ventral brake of the vagal nerve system. So for me, it's in through the nose, slightly longer out breath through the mouth, like I'm blowing out some birthday candles. Those of you that do yoga, I know there's a million gazillion amazing yoga breathing exercises, but you need to study them and you need to practice them. So this is my one, which is like, if I'm in a panic, I just do that. It's easy. Yeah. Those are my emergency greens. Then I've got like my maintenance greens. These are things like I try my best to do them every day. Yeah. One of them is like talk to a member of my family or somebody that cares for, somebody I know who loves me or who doesn't judge me, like reaching out to somebody, in some way. I get a connection green. Moving my body in some way. Maybe it's a formal training session. Maybe it's doing some leg raises while the kettle's boiling, some push-ups on the kitchen counter, some shoulder rolls, something with movement. But again, I want it in my everyday life. I don't want to have to stop, pack my gym bag, go over there, drive my car. I need to be able to do it like now. Yeah. Then you've got the kind of ones that need a bit more planning. So maybe that is your gym, your run around the park, your weight session, going to the park to do the pull-up bars. but you can see that there's more planning required there. It needs more
Yeah,
planning.
yeah.
It needs
And
more
time.
time.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a red, I've got no time and I can't plan because my frontal lobe is like offline going,
Yeah.
So I want to
Yeah.
have this list ready. And when things really get bad, this is what I advise to my clients is you need a friend to have that list. So when you ring them up and go, they just say, okay, can I just check what
Yeah.
greens have you done today? Have you had your greens today?
Mhm.
Are you able to go to the park, Tam? Do you need me to come over and get you and we go for a walk in the park? Right. So you're suddenly in a different dialogue
Yeah.
around what is it possible for you to do? I can come and help you if you need me to. But the thing I'm going to help you with is for you to get your greens.
Mm.
And my greens might be different. Right. So people say, oh, go in nature. Oh, yeah, nature. So nice. Go in nature. Not if you're afraid of bugs. It's not green for you. Not if you've
Yeah.
got really bad allergies. It's not green for you. So
Yeah.
don't tell people what, but think for yourself. The
Yeah.
other kinds of greens, like creativity is a green for me, like taking photos, coloring in, just being stupid with the coloring in, just give myself permission to play. And
Mm.
then, faith practice can be a green. For me, I would
Mhm.
call it more spirituality, but for many, it's prayer, right? Who do we turn to when the shit hits the fan, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're like, oh my God, save me. So, don't underestimate that prayer, spirituality, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's finding the divine in a sunset, I don't know, or a beautiful moment that you have with somebody.
Mm.
So you can have all these different kinds of greens. And, keeping the greens topped up is a good idea because it makes you more resilient. Having them on a piece of paper stuck on your wall is great for if you find yourself in a big red moment and then you're like, I don't know what to do. And then you're like, oh, actually, no, I do know what to do. What
Yeah.
is the easiest thing I can do?
Yeah. Do you know what was really interesting there? The bit that really resonated with me was the giving your list to your friend. So there's almost, I don't know if it's an accountability piece, but there's that part a little bit. But also there's been numerous guests who've come on and they've spoken about willpower, and our willpower will only take us so far. And having like we can create great habits, we can try and do the right things all of the time, but sometimes our brain just doesn't support us in doing that. So
Yeah.
actually having someone else, that's a really good practical way of doing it. Having someone else who, when you're down, can just help, even just help guide you there. Because we all know what it's like when you're in that red moment and your brain is just stressing or struggling or finding it quite difficult. There isn't that clarity of thought to think, actually, right now I'm really, really struggling. So what I'm going to do is something positive. Because a lot of us, we almost, I think, especially depending on what you're struggling with, but you almost go into that like, I'm not worthy of doing something good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
shouldn't do something good because I'm in my own head and because you start to beat yourself up, even with the stress and the worry and all those sorts of things. So yeah, that part of having someone else there and having that open conversation with people, that there is going to be times in my life when I struggle. And when I do struggle, if you ever get that phone a friend call from me, I need you to do this version. But having those conversations in a positive place sets that conversation up for success in the future, I think.
Yeah, because there's sort of three things that can happen. And I mean, this is sort of like therapy work, but not.
Yeah,
Because I believe it needs to be in our lives, not just in the therapy room. There are some things that do need to be in the therapy room, I think, but these
yeah,
are not them. These are the basics of mental wealth. So, when you phone a
mm,
friend with a struggle, one of the key questions that I kind of train people to ask is, do you need me to listen? Which means I'm in green mode. Do you need
mm,
me to listen, or do you need help with problem solving?
mm,
Because actually just listening and mindful presence when somebody is in sharing a red is already helpful. If they can share a red moment with you, and you're just fully in listening and witnessing and not trying to problem solve and just kind of going, God, that sucks. It's really sorry that tell me, I'm listening, I'm witnessing your reds. That's already can be helpful. Sometimes people might want help with problem solving, in which case then you kind of contract them and you say, well, I've got some suggestions. Are two brains going to be better than one on this? Yeah. But I would even say before you go to problem solving, I would just check, is there anything I can do to help you access your greens? Because if you fill up your green tank, your frontal lobe's going to come back online. You'll probably be able to figure this out. I can help you figure it out, but maybe what I can do is be more in that coaching mode, which is, have you got your greens? Are you doing them? Do you need help doing them? Do you want to just, you go to the park, give me a ring when you get back. Yeah. Just put your shoes on, right? Stay on the phone with me right now. Put your shoes on. Have you got the dog? Have you got the shoes? Have you got the poop bags? Okay, go and ring me when you get back.
Yeah.
So it's so beautiful. Yeah.
It isn't so much of this. Like, it's so simple. Like, you hear it and you're like, it is actually just so simple. But why do we not do it? Like, is there a reason why we don't? I don't expect you to know the answer to that. Maybe you do know the answer. I don't know. But why do we all know a lot of the right things that will help us feel good? And a lot of it is movement. For me, it is anyway. It's such a big thing for me feeling good. But I go through so many phases in my life of being a bit of a lazy shit, in a bit of a rut. And I wonder why I'm in a rut a little bit. But I know I'm not moving. But then when I move all the time, I feel great. Like, that inconsistency affects so much. And I just wish you could almost wake up on a morning, take that shot of consistency of good habits, and then life's pretty good then.
Well, what I would probably say is watch out for the judging monkey, because when the judging monkey arrives, it's rarely helpful. And I mean, I can resonate with that, ebbs and flows of moments when it feels like I'm on, and other moments when it feels like I'm being a bit slothful, and then I move and then I go, why don't I do this? Then I sit on the cushion. I go, oh my God, oh, it's so nice. Why am I not sitting on the cushion?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think the should and the judging monkey, we should, but we're in, life is happening. We're human beings.
Yeah.
If we notice really kind of, maybe what we could offer to ourselves is a piece of self-reflection around, what do I notice about those patterns, when I've been more on it and when I haven't. And, it could be something about age or stage of life. When people have kids, all the healthy habits go out the window, because it's like you got a little person that you need to look after, and you can't go to the gym. You can't do your whatever Peloton, right?
You can't take 2 hours a day for yourself anymore.
Exactly. So there might be some kind of life stuff that's around, which it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. But there might also be something which is like, there's certain conditions that are more likely to tip me in or out of, what I feel is optimum for me. And I would just say, like, if this is optimum, like, increase the degrees of freedom around it, increase the variance of it. So you're saying, like, well, the ideal is 3 runs a week, but like 1 is okay and 5 would be nice, and 3 is the average, but 1 is okay also, because over time I want my average to be 3, not 3 every week. And if I don't do 3 every week, then I'm a failure and I can't do it. And I don't know if that speaks to it, but there's something about reviewing and reflecting and where we can nudge, but also I think that's really normal. We're not, well, you maybe were an elite athlete, but we're not elite athletes. We're like,
and as you say, life just gets in the way. That's it, isn't it? Life is absolutely in the way all of the time, and it's just carving. The thing I've tried to learn, and I'm definitely still on that journey, is carving time out for myself. Why? And that sounds so stupid, because it's our life. We should just always prioritize ourselves, but we don't. We go to work and we work crazy hours, or and we've got family life, we've got friends, and although within family life, work and friends, there is us time, there's not, very rarely do we ever like reflect back on what is making me happy, what is making me sad, what do I enjoy doing, what do I not enjoy doing, what would make me happier, I should do more of that. Like what when I have moments when I do that, I feel great because then I feel in control of my life. But then when I have the 6 months of the year or 10 months of the year, whatever that is, where I don't, I almost feel like I'm just winging life all of the time because I'm not having those like dedicated sit down, reflect. Like this is where you are, this is what you're happy with, or this is what you want. And it seems so basic again when you talk about it to do it, but we just don't.
But there's stages of life, right? And that
Yeah.
there's that phase when you're young and you're studying, and there is that energy of like the task of life is to get into life and to start participating in life. Now we can talk about what are the lives that have been constructed around us that we have to choose from. That's a slightly different topic, but so that's appropriate, right? You're meant to be busy, you're meant to be engaged, you're meant to be doing lots of things, and blah 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 blah. There's a really good book by he's a Jungian psychologist, James Hollis, and it's called How to Finally Really Grow Up. And he talks about those kind of two phases in life. That first phase, you are mostly oriented towards being accepted by the tribe and whatever the markers of success of the tribe are, which is, money, house, marriage, whatever, wherever you are in the world might be different. The second half of life, you've got a different task. In the second half of life, it is more about that kind of, actually, the only boss I need to answer to is me.
Yeah.
Right. Now, in the kind of more spiritual evolution language, the earlier in your life you can have that conversation, there's an opportunity for you more to then say, but I'm choosing to live a life of purpose, and my job is to find my purpose. What is my mission here in this vehicle of meat that my soul has been given?
Yeah. No, it's so true.
So some people do manage to find that a bit earlier on, but they're the people that are probably not doing things like mainstream society is
telling them to do.
asking.
Yeah, that social construct which we all conform because we're driven to do, because that is the way, we're all on that hamster wheel. No, I get it. And I think, so we were talking before, and I have a corporate job. So it's very high intense, pressure, stress, loads of enjoyment. Like I do really enjoy it. But you notice the people who've been in these types of roles for a long period of time, my attitude to work and their attitude to work are two very different things. That they've almost gone over that cycle to, work is just a means to an end to go home and see my family. But as you say, when you first start in work, it's like, oh, I need to be successful, I need to get promoted, I need to work harder, I need to put the hours in. But there's people doing the same job getting so much more out of it because they live to work, not work to live. And that part where you say, you almost hit that stage of your life where the penny almost drops and you go, I need to stop making my life around the things that I think I have to do and start doing the things that I want and love to do. And naturally, when we talk about well-being, that's where well-being really is, when your life is what you want it to be, not what you think it should be, and trying to chase the things that don't actually make you happy.
Yeah, I mean, let's again just to there's an edge to that, which is that sort of positive toxicity, and it's we need, most people need to work, right? So there's always going to be an element of probably needing to do some things that you don't want to do. This kind of idea, like, oh, my dream life, I'm just going to manifest it. It's like, well,
I hate that idea so much.
It's a bit tricky, but it's the trick there is, it's the mind you bring to it.
Yeah.
It's the mind you bring to it. So that famous Zen quote, which is, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It's like you're doing the same thing, but the mind you bring to it might be different. And in the work case, it might be something like you're better at putting up boundaries to say, actually, I'm contracted to do this much work. And if I'm working this many hours and I'm contracted for this many hours, that's actually a problem of management.
Yeah.
That is actually the management has not allocated time resource sufficiently. So it's not for me to work an extra 5 hours a day. Don't mind doing it if we've got a big project we're all pulling together
Yeah.
and, blah, blah,
Ebbs and
blah.
flows. Yeah.
But if I'm regularly working, even 2 hours more a day or even a certain number, that is actually that's poor management. And it's not for you to pick that up. Now, I know it's scary out there because, of course, the minute you put boundaries, then people think, I'm going to get fired and my kids and my mortgage. So everybody's unique. But I would suggest to the listeners, if they're in a situation like that, one, start tracking it so you can see the reality of it.
Yeah.
Two, bring it up in your performance review.
Yeah.
Three, if you need to, I know it's a bit sneaky, invent a sick relative that you need to take care of. Right? Because sometimes we can do it. Because if you think like, okay, say my mum got sick.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish work at 5 to get home.
Yeah.
Right? And I would be allowed to do that. And it's my contract as
But
well.
it's your contract hours anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
But somehow, if we're saying it's for us, it might be
We feel
harder. I'm
guilty.
still being a bit cheeky there, but play that experiment with you. Like, under what conditions would you feel brave enough to say, actually, this is becoming a bit of an issue? I need to play soccer 3 times a week because that helps me to be well, and that's going to help me with focus. And I haven't made it to any sessions this week because I've been here till 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or I finish at 7 and it starts at 6. Whatever.
Yeah. It's a really important thing. And do you think a lot of, again, this is a very general question, so apologies. You will tell me there's an edge. You definitely will. In terms of, do you think a lot of being happy has to do with like the boundaries you set with yourself and others? Because that's what I was really taking from that.
Boundaries is so important. I mean, it starts at a young age, right? When we're given boundaries by our caregivers.
Yeah.
And it's something that many, many, many people are not good at, not through their own fault. But if you know somebody in your life that's good at boundaries, I suggest you study them and see what they do and what they say. But at the heart of boundaries is often, I don't care what you think about me because I know that this is right for me. And I'm willing, again, another great book. I can't remember the author, but it's called The Courage to be Disliked. And it's kind of a dialogue between a student and a master about, why is it that well, for good reason, of course, we want to be liked, but sometimes it's to the nth degree where we're actually harming ourselves because we're prioritizing the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, do you know, whenever I meet someone in life who has really good boundaries, probably like you say, I always just feel in awe of them. It's they almost have an aura about them. It's I don't give a shit what anyone thinks about me, but that they just almost exude confidence or self-confidence, because actually you can see that they're doing everything with a purpose, or it feels like they might not be, but it feels like they're doing everything with a purpose because this is right for me, therefore I'm going to do it. And one of the hosts who isn't on tonight, Sean, he's very much like that. It's really hard to tell or to get Sean to do anything that he doesn't really want, that he doesn't absolutely want to do. So when he wants to do something, he's all in. But if he kind of wants to do it, the likelihood he goes, no, my time will be best spent elsewhere. I'm just going to do what's best for me. But I'm really bad at that.
Well, I mean, 2 things, and then just mindful of the time, but one dear friend of mine has this great phrase, and she says, what's the value of your yes if you never say no?
That's so true.
Yeah, write that down, everybody. It's the real gem.
Yeah. So
but from a neuroscience point of view and a consciousness point of view, the language that we use is, free won't is more important than free will. So it's that it's the no. And I think if you go to business world and business language, I can't remember, there was one of, all these books that come out, but I can't remember which one it was, but it was basically saying successful businesses, successful entrepreneurs are the people that are just like, no, 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 because it's not about having the drive. It's about being able to get the barriers out of the way. So it's weirdly like the focus comes from the no's, like from the ability to like really quickly discern, like, is it an opportunity? Yes, no. If it's no, I just quickly cut. And I'm sorry if you're my friend and it sounds like a good idea and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a great business, but no, I'm here.
Yeah. There's so much in that. Like, I feel like that's a whole topic in itself. My brain, I hear things like that and I'm like, do you know when you're hearing things and you're just like self-reflecting as you're hearing it, going, I say yes to so many things to either help someone out or to be supportive or whatever. But actually, what is that taking away from me? So yeah, that's definitely resonated. And I think there's probably lots of people out there who are the same, where we don't say no. We might not even say yes, but we don't say no. And I think there is a difference, because sometimes we let things happen instead of just no.
Well, and there's multiple reasons why that ADHD is also kind of impulsivity often is one of the symptoms. So sometimes the yes can be coming out of the mouth while the mind is still saying, no, let me think about it. Right. So it could be impulsivity. It could be, a need to be loved and liked, of course, is often a reason we say yes. It could be the novelty, sensation seeking, like, oh, yes. Oh, Tamara, can you help me set up a rollerblading for children that are visually impaired? It's like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. I would love to do that. And then I'll just, hang on a minute. I'm just not sure I've got time for that. So what I would recommend in that situation is like have some phrases that you practice that introduce a delay. So, and you need to practice, like a script. You need to practice it. You need to find one that
I
makes
really need this. I need this script.
So you need your own script. So it might be something like, that sounds great. Let me get back to you. That sounds great. I do need to think about that. If you want the answer now, it's no. If I can get back to you, it might be yes. But if you want the answer now, it's no, because I haven't had time to think about it. But if you give me a bit of time, it could be yes.
Yeah. And people will always give you the time, especially if that's the outcome that they want. So
yeah,
no, that's really good. I'm also conscious of time. I don't know how long you were happy to stay on or not stay on. Yeah, so
let's do maybe a few more minutes. Yeah, okay. And then I'm going to put my timeout boundary.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. What we obviously do with all guests, and let's talk about your work. Let's talk about the things that you do, because I think that's the how people can learn more. That's the how people can. This is very much an introductory conversation, a good conversation, but there's so much more to you and the work you do. So do you want to talk about that and how people can potentially get involved? And because I think that would be massive for listeners.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, I turned 50 this year. So I did that big kind of life review. What am I doing? How am I spending my time? How am I going to integrate all these things? And what's my truth? What's my passion? And what I really am passionate about is, helping people to be well, but with these kind of principles-based approaches. So I've been collating all my knowledge and putting together something called the Dragon Academy. The inspiration comes from, of course, Bruce Lee, the original dragon, but also some other important dragons in my life, people that really inspired me. And what we do is we study movement. So we study the movement of the body. We study the movement of the emotions using those colors that I mentioned to you earlier on, the red, greens, and blues of the emotional movements of the body. And through meditation and various kind of brain training practices, we study the movement of mind. So I have a Dragon Warriors Facebook group, which you can find me on Facebook, or you can find Dragon Warriors. with my name as well. Maybe you can pop the link in.
Yeah.
And, we're a community of people from all walks of life with all kinds of different whatever's diagnoses or whatever you want to call it. But our common
Experiences.
place of meeting is to say, I'm willing to give it a go. Small but simple steps. Be in community together, supporting each other, balancing that kind of, here's me giving a bit of the science, but you go away and do it and let us know how you got on with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And really learning together. So I have an app as well, the Dragon Academy app. At the moment, it's got the study of mental movements. That's the course we're working through at the moment. So it's information about the brain, how the brain works, how to study, what your mind is doing. And yeah, it's for people that want to do things differently and grow a little bit together and have a good time at the same time. So Dragon Warrior Facebook group. And
what really stood out there though, the most thing, and what just the reason I'm going to touch on this point for listeners is the community aspect, because I think going on a journey with people is so much easier than doing it by yourself, especially when you're talking about health and your own mental health, because so much of it we struggle with our own thoughts because we don't understand them. So as you mentioned the guide before, potentially having people in that group who have walked or you're going to follow their path, because they might just be a year, 5, 10, 20 years ahead of you on the journey you're on today, because that's massively changed my health, having people who've walked the path that I'm now walking, just to be able to ask and understand my own thoughts and feelings. So yeah, it sounds like an incredible group, and we will definitely post and share it. I will obviously be joining it myself as well. So
yay, great.
it would be really cool. Yeah, and is there other places where people can find you? And I know you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I mean, I do some of this work in the corporate setting, also kind of trying to think about what is the future board. I mean, the reality is I'm literally using the same knowledge, but it's just wrapped in a slightly different wrapper, depending on the context. But it's all the same stuff. I mean, it's kind of like a bit boring in a way, but I can't seem to say it enough to people. So I'm on LinkedIn. I've got there's Tamara Russell YouTube. I'm on TikTok. Actually, some of my kind of running tips are on my TikTok. I'm fairly new to all of this kind of social media stuff, so it's a bit chaotic, but I'm trying my best to do it in a mindful way and to use it for good and not harm.
So, you know so much, and the world needs to hear it. It's one of those, isn't it? So I think
and
it's
Dr. Tamara Russell on Insta. But if you're really kind of interested, I do suggest go to the Facebook group, because I'm trying to just make one place.
Yeah.
And we have kind of like monthly free focus webinar. I have a monthly kind of community moon practice on the full moon for people that are a little bit more wanting to play with celestial dragons. And and there's lots of really great people there who themselves are teachers of various sorts. So it's quite a interesting group of people that are sharing also, their things and, insights and talks and things that I moderate a little bit, but just make
that's
sure
a
it's
bit out there for me. That's a little bit too far out there.
I'm like, where is the evidence? What is the evidence? But I think we need to be open to different things, and we need to be able to tolerate difference too, right?
Yeah,
And
100%.
disagree. And I can say like, I'm not really into that, but I don't want to ban things, I think we need healthy debate and to be able to be like, oh, I'm really red with that, but it's okay. I can.
If it's good for you, then it's good for you. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
No, completely. Well, I would just like to say thank you for coming on. You've been genuinely incredible, and I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of everything you know. And so yeah, I will look forward to many more future conversations and joining your group. And you've been an incredible guest. So thank you very much for coming on to the Everyman Podcast. We are so grateful.
Yeah, well, listen, I wish your listeners well and get your find your greens and nourish yourselves as
Yeah.
best you can, and then you can train hard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Okay.
listeners, thank you very much for listening. If you've listened live, there's been around on the stats there. There's been around, I don't know, 200 people that have dropped in and out throughout. So if you are listening, or if you have listened, thank you very much. This will be going on Spotify next week, I think. Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, all of the usual main ones. Next week will be released. So thank you very much, and we will catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.